Thank you all very much for coming along, and thank you to Alex for hosting me today, and especially thank you to Peter for helping me locate all these wonderful manuscripts and smoothing over some problems with the more difficult to acquire ones. The theme of the talk today, expressed through these 5 fantastic objects, is the loss and survival of ancient scholarship, really. So the first item I'm going to show you, and I'm following Peter's technique of reveal as we go to keep you interested. The first is a fantastic papyrus, which preserves for us a fragment of the Homeric Lexicon of Apollonius the Sophist. This is a sort of guide to the difficult Greek of Homer, and so really functions like a modern dictionary. What is really fantastic about this particular bit of papyrus is this is from the mid-2nd century. Apollonius lived around the end of the 1st century, so this is probably not more than a few decades younger than the man himself who wrote it. And this particular papyrus is the only surviving fragment of the full edition. The ones that survive to us through the manuscript tradition are much shorter and more compressed. So this is the sort of full version, and is, sadly, our only surviving witness to this much larger, very valuable scholarly work. If you want to have a closer look at that later, I've put a little printed copy there. Moving on, this is one of the most famous and wonderful papyri in the world. This is one of the frames of the Hawara Homer. Well, I partly wanted to bring it out because it's so fantastic, but it also gives you an idea of how we get from this standalone scholarship to these manuscripts we'll look at later. You will see when you come and have a closer look, there are a few comments written in the margins of this. And over the course of antiquity, they start writing scholarship in the margins of the editions. This is called the Hawara Homer. It was discovered in winter 1888 in Hawara in Egypt, near the Fayum. And it's such a wonderful papyrus. It both is absolutely beautiful, the handwriting is lovely, but it was also found underneath the head of a woman who was buried with it. So this was a wealthy young woman, as far as we can tell, who loved her Homer so much that she chose to be buried with it. And I just have to read, when I was researching this is a quote from A.H. Sayce, who was the professor of Assyriology at Oxford, who, when he wrote up the first report of this papyrus, commented, "The skull of the mummy shows that its possessor had been young and attractive looking, with features at once small, intellectual and finely chiseled, and belonging distinctively to the Greek type. Through the generosity of Mr. Hayworth, both skull and papyrus are now in the Bodleian Library at Oxford, along with the tress of the unknown Hypatia's black hair." And I am pleased is maybe not the right word, but I'm interested to report that the skull and the lock are still in the Bodleian's collection. So important was it to keep her with her beloved copy of Homer. Right, and moving along now, we jump quite a long time. Both of these 2 papyri are from about the 2nd century AD. We're going to jump ahead to the 10th century AD, and this is a fantastic manuscript which sort of tells us a little bit about how this scholarship, which wasn't lost, survives to us today. So this is very similar to the Apollonius papyrus. This preserves effectively a glossary on the Odyssey in particular. And this manuscript is a parchment codex. And what is particularly wonderful, that Peter and I were quite excited about this morning, is that one of the terms glossed in this fragment of Apollonius also appears on this page of the Odyssey manuscript, glossed in the same way. It is this entry here, ἐφράσθης, glossed as epignos, for those of you who read Greek. And we are sort of very lucky that very occasionally this ancient scholarship that does turn up in papyri turns up in these manuscripts. I do have an extra little note on this one. This is only really of interest to other people who are nerds about the Scholia like me, which is that this manuscript was owned by Nicolai, who brought the Venetus A manuscript to Europe, if any of you have heard of that. and it was consulted by T.W. Allen in preparation of the original Homer Oxford Classical Text. Okay, moving on. This next manuscript is on books 1 to 12 of the Iliad, and this looks a lot like the main manuscripts where the Scholia are preserved. You will be able to see we have the text of Homer in the middle of the page with marginal comments around it on all sides. I'm just going to grab an extra snack. Which preserve some of this ancient scholarship on them. It's, again, really pretty to look at, but of particular interest in this manuscript is that there is a note on this page recording that on the 19th of May, 1346, the dome of the Hagia Sofia collapsed in what was then Byzantium. And then somebody has kindly translated it into Latin just below, just in case you couldn't read the Greek. But I'll leave it open on this page so that you can see all the marginal comments. And this looks a lot like the manuscripts of the Scholia that my sort of material comes from, including that famous Venetus A. I haven't looked at those properly, so don't ask me exactly what the Scholia say, please. And finally, last but certainly not least, this manuscript, these last two are both from the same collection, from Holkham Hall. This is a manuscript of Aristophanes, and for one particular member of the audience, this is the title page of Aristophanes' Clouds. They will know who they are, the clouds expert in the room. Showing you, again, some lovely marginal comments and some little things in the margins, showing you that actually, even though we've seen this fantastic array of ancient scholarship and the care and devotion lavished on Homer and the texts of Homer across the centuries, in fact, Aristophanes and other classical authors also received this same treatment. And we do find these sort of little tiny glimpses of ancient scholarship on some of these other authors as well. So please do come and have a look at them. I'm here, I'm very happy to answer all of your questions, and I hope this gives you a sense of how lucky we are to have what we have of ancient scholarship, and just how much of it, unfortunately, is no longer with us today. Thank you.
Charlie, could you just turn over once for me to...
So it's this.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you.
No problem.
Fascinating.
Thank you.